Good afternoon, everyone. The General Law Subcommittee on Professions and Occupations will come to order, and the clerk will open the roll for attendance, please. Clerk will close the roll. Oh, wait, not yet. All right, clerk, no, you're good. Clerk will close the roll. We have a quorum. Okay, so a couple of administrative actions. We do have a request from the patron to strike HB 1428, patroned by Delegate Shen. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. I believe that is a voice vote to strike. No, I'm sorry. Strike is, I will get it, is a recorded vote, so the clerk will open the roll. All right, clerk will close the roll. Bill is stricken from the docket. And now I know where the voice vote is, and that is the motion to carry over. And Delegate Cole, you have, to make sure I'm getting the right one, is yours HB 1390, that still may need a little bit of work. And we're looking to...
I move that we carry over HB 1390 under Rule 22, and that we also think about getting it to FOIA Council in some capacity. Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion to carry over HB 1390 with a letter to the FOIA Council, and it's been seconded, and that is a voice vote. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the bill is carried over. Thank you, Delegate Cole, for your continued work on that. All right, so those are the administrative items. So now we will start at the top of our docket with Delegate Glass. You have HB 248.
Good evening, Madam Chair. We are starting with HB 248. Okay.
And I do see you have two, so you can
Copy.
both, but we'll start with 248.
There is a substitute. I can explain it if you'd like.
I move to substitute.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the substitutes before us, if you'd like to explain.
Yes, Madam Chair. So the substitute just tightens up the definition of autonomous agent to software or hardware that operates independently without a real human intervention capable of performing a task when executed by a human. So it just makes very specifically what we need, what we mean by autonomous agent.
And Council, is the substitute on IHOD at this time? Okay, substitute is on IHOD. Okay. All right, if you'd like to present the rest of your bill.
Yes, Madam Chair. So I thought it was really interesting, the conversations that we've been having about this bill, and I'm just going to quote you, Madam Chair. So you want to license robots? Not really, but yes. So really, we are walking into an age where there are applications able to do the work that typically a human would do. And so what our goal is, and the understanding that we're walking towards that, is to sort of establish maybe a legal framework that licenses autonomous agents that can perform tasks that are capable of that a human are capable of. So we license architects. And right now, there can be an architect out there that says, you know what, I'm just going to design an application that can do my job for me. And then have people pay to use that application to build my specs and learn from all the work that I've done. So that person has essentially created an autonomous agent that is doing their work for them. We would ordinarily expect that person to come to DPOR and have a license to be able to do the work. And so we're just trying to look forward, and that the goal is some sort of legal framework. So we are just trying to respond to this rapid advancement in artificial intelligence and machine learning by focusing on this idea that is quite frankly here already of autonomous agents that are capable of working independently. And that's the ultimate goal of this bill.
All right, are there any questions from the members? Is there anyone here in the audience who would like to speak for the bill? Is there anyone who would like to speak against the bill? All right. At this time, the committee, do you have any final words, Delegate Glass, or was that?
We know what's going to happen here. So I just want to express gratitude for you hearing the bill and look forward to the steps that we take to really start looking at what our world is going to look like occupationally when we start bringing artificial intelligence into it.
And I will say, Delegate, that, I mean, you are, I think, timely with starting this conversation now, because this is happening and it's coming, and it's not just our future, but we're kind of on the cusp of it, and I do think it's really important that we get it right. I think there's going to be a lot of questions about licensure and issues around liability and just kind of where that line is drawn on final accountability and what duties we would allow AI or other, as I said, robots to you, which may not have been accurate, to what functions they would do. It is a complex issue, and I think it is important that we start this conversation now so that we're not wishing we'd started this conversation in a few years. All right, the committee operates by motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a motion.
Delegate Krizek.
The robot overlords have asked me to carry this over with a letter to JCOTS.
Second. All right, it's been moved and seconded to carry the bill over because we do want to keep working on this, and so it's a conscious decision by those of us who are sentient to carry it over so that we can continue to work on it. And because it is important, and have that letter to JCOT so that it can be thoroughly reviewed and we can really make sure we get this right. And I really thank you for bringing it. The clerk will open the roll. Oh, I'm sorry, voice vote. Sorry, that's right. I tell you I'm going to get it right, and maybe that's not true. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the bill is carried over. Thank you, Delegate. And then you have with us HB 576.
Yes, Madam Chair. So House Bill 576, there is also a substitute for this bill.
All right.
I move the substitute.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the substitute is before us. Delegate Glass.
Gratitude, Madam Chair. So what the substitute for this bill does is require that as a statement of disclosure to be included in a cover sheet to a written contract involving residential rooftop solar panels. This bill is, I want to say, very deeply personal, as I've had many folks in our district that have dealt with the ramifications of putting residential solar on their homes without fully understanding what's happening and the consequence that comes along with it. Our goal here is to provide a statement for consumer protection disclosures for the purchase of residential rooftop solar panels and require the involvement of a roofing contractor in the installation of residential rooftop solar panels. When we initially got into the solar business, residential rooftop wasn't a thing. We weren't talking about it. But what folks are learning is that the moment that they have someone put a hole into their roof, it voids their warranty. That the person putting the solar on their roof may not necessarily know that their roof is not a sustainable structure for that, and find out 4 years down the road that they have to remove that solar and get their roof redone only to put it back on, realizing the majority of the cost for putting solar on your roof is the labor piece. So what we've done here is said that if someone is going to be putting a hole into someone's roof, then they should have some sort of expertise with roofs. Period. Some way, shape, or form. I don't think that's too much to ask. And the disclosure portion, if we sort of aligned ourselves, there's a Senate cognate that talks about the disclosure piece of just saying to the consumer that if they decide to have someone install solar that does not have a roofing capabilities or a structural engineer, whatever that may be, that they are subjecting themselves to voiding their warranty for their roof. Also saying that by any guarantee, the seller of the energy project, will provide the equipment, and just really putting people in the know and giving them opportunity to really understand what they're getting themselves into when they decide to put solar on their roof.
Thank you, Delegate. Are there any questions from the committee?
Yeah, I have a question.
Delegate Krizek.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So is the board for contractors, they would be required to come up with these disclosures, these regulations and disclosures. How do you envision this?
So in talking with DPOR, there, I believe, if I'm understanding this correctly, because we've been talking with them all since summer about this, is that there would just be a form that would have to go along with for anyone that decides to get solar that's already mapped out, that has these, it's just a disclosure agreement. I think it's already predetermined. We are determining here what would be on there, and that would go along with anybody that is licensed to do so would have to put the form with it or disclose it to their customer.
Follow-up question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would you be adverse to a friendly amendment to keep this going, but to have a delayed enactment of a year? So it'd still pass, and then they'd have a year to put this all together. I'm a little...
I consider that very friendly. Madam Chair, I would say that is friendly.
Is there a second, or have you made
I would
a
like to,
motion?
Madam Chair, I would have a motion to put a delayed enactment clause on the bill.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to add the delayed enactment clause on
1 year.
of 1 year. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the bill is amended. Is there anyone here in the audience who would like to speak for the bill?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Ben Hoyne, Virginia Interfaith Power and Light. I want to thank the patron for bringing the bill forward. We hear from folks across the Commonwealth who are suffering from kind of the over-promising, under-delivering that's taking place in the solar industry. Certainly, there's some tremendous solar companies in Virginia. We need a robust residential solar industry to support our initiatives with the Clean Economy Act. But unfortunately, a few bad apples are spoiling the bunch. And so this kind of first step, providing just a disclosure form to really ensure that people are getting what they're kind of promised on their doorstep is really important. South Carolina did this a handful of years ago, a real simplistic kind of two-pager that goes along with any residential solar contract. So really, again, appreciate the patron. Thank you for your work. We've been working on this for a couple of years now. I encourage the committee's support. Thank you.
Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee, Josephus Allman with the Southern Environmental Law Center. I want to thank the patron for bringing this bill. This will help protect Virginians from unscrupulous solar providers and ensure that all Virginians have the same information about their solar system. We've had a couple of attorneys in our Charlottesville office get burned by one of those unscrupulous developers, and so disclosures like this will help, as Mr. Hoyne said, prevent over-promising and under-delivering. So we'd ask you to support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee, my name is Lillian Anderson, and I'm with the Virginia Conservation Network, and we support this bill. This bill would require disclosures to prevent providers from making unrealistic promises and provide important consumer protections. We'd ask that you support this bill, and we thank the patron for bringing it forward.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, my name is Abigail Thompson with Gentry Locke, here on behalf of the Solar Energy Industries Association. She is grateful to the delegate for helping us work to get this bill to a better position, though we're still waiting on feedback from our membership. As the delegate mentioned, there's a bill in the Senate that also deals with this issue that has an involved stakeholder process through VDACs that we prefer, but we look forward to continuing the conversation on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Erin Corman with the Realtors, and we also support this bill.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience here to speak in opposition to the bill? All right. Delegate Glass, do you have any final remarks?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Committee operates by motion.
Madam Chair, I have a motion to report the bill as amended.
Second.
And as with the substitute.
As amended.
As amended. Thank you.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Clerk will open the roll. Clerk will close the roll. The bill reports. Thank you.
Gratitude,
Delegate.
Madam Chair, and the robot overlords.
All right. Delegate Ennis.
Madam Chair, before I begin, I would like to offer an amendment in the nature of a substitute. I want to thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. House Bill 1182 makes changes to the voluntary certification requirements for Virginia's professional wetland delineator certification to better align with the Universal Licensing Recognition Statute, the ULR.
Delegate, sorry to interrupt you, but let's get the substitute before us. We're going to hear a motion to adopt the substitute. And
I'm
then
so
No,
sorry.
you're fine. You're fine.
I move to
It was
adopt
being
this-
passed out, so.
Yeah, move to adopt the substitute.
Second.
All right, it's moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, substitutes before us. Go ahead.
The substitute bill is the product of a group effort between my office, DPOR, and various wetland advocacy groups. The substitute will reduce the years of experience required to become a wetland delineator, but keeps the training and letter of recommendation requirements under the current code in place. House Bill 1182 makes changes to the voluntary certification requirements for Virginia's professional wetlands delineator certification to better align with the Universal Licensing Recognition Statute. This bill will reduce the years of experience required to become a wetland delineator while keeping the training requirements and letters of recommendation in place. Under this bill, a prospective wetland delineator must have at least 3 years' experience in wetlands delineation or 3 years in wetland science or science research. This cuts the requirement down from 6 and 4 years in both categories. I also have Stephen Kirshner here, who's the Deputy Director for Licensing and Regulatory Programs, here to answer any technical questions you may have. This bill was the product of weeks of deliberation between my office, the Department of Professional and Occupational Regulation, and various wetland advocacy groups. The input of each group was vital to reach the final bill that everyone can live with. I hope it is the pleasure of the committee to report this bill. Thank you.
Sorry, mic back on. Thank you, Delegate. I'll see if there's any questions from the committee. They may be directed at your expert. But are there any questions from the committee at this time? Delegate Krizek.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Delegate, all your bill does right now is just moves it from 4 to 3 years of experience in wetland delineation. If you still have a record of at least 6 years' experience in wetland delineation, that the quality of which demonstrates to the board that the applicant is competent to practice, that would also still qualify. Am I correct?
Yes. Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the committee, yes, that's correct. Under the substitute, the 6 years of experience would still qualify. The reduction would be for those that are combining experience and education.
Madam Chair.
Delegate Krizek.
So is the administration and DEQ, are they supportive of this?
Madam Chair, yes, this is an agency bill, and the administration is in support of it.
All right. Any other questions from the committee? All right. Is there anyone in the room who would like to come up and speak in favor of the bill? Is there anyone in the room in opposition to the bill? All right. Any final remarks from the patron? Or do you feel okay? Any final questions from the committee? If not, the committee operates by motion.
Report.
Go ahead.
I'll second the
All right.
motion is to report.
It's been moved and seconded. Report with substitute. Thank you. The clerk will open the roll. Clerk will close the roll. And close the roll. Oh, it's closed. Okay, it's still. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, the bill report 6-0. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Delegate. Okay, going down our list. Delegate Scott?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Before you is House Bill 1192. I'd like you just to imagine that you go to your mailbox and you get a letter from the state saying that there is debt that's owed to the state from over 15 years ago. To the best of your recollection, you paid that debt. You had mailed out a money order. You can't get any record of that, and even bank statements, unless you are a collector of things, you would not have. And most banks, you can't even go back more than 7 years online to determine whether or not you did pay. This happens to somebody in my district. They went to their mailbox one day and was notified that they owed the state money, and if they didn't pay it immediately, then a warrant in debt would have been issued against them for this unpaid debt. After a call with the debt collection department, they were told that somebody moved out of an office and a file was found at the back of a filing cabinet that had been misfiled. And since there is no statute of limitations on the state collecting debt, they were calling on that debt. After several back and forths that included the person's attorney, they had set up a payment plan and came to an agreement. But unfortunately, this person believed that they paid this debt twice, but had no way of proving that. And so this bill just simply aims to correct that issue by putting a 7-year statute of limitations on state debt to protect the citizens of Virginia.
Thank you, Delegate. Are there questions from the committee?
Madam Chair,
Delegate Krizek?
question. So right now, what is the statute of limitations on debt? It's 7 years?
For the state, there is no statute for the state on collecting debt.
And so you would make it 7?
So we're making this 7, and the idea of 7 years, it could potentially.
Follow-up question.
Delegate Krizek?
Can you tell us how that compares with other states?
Madam Chair, I would answer that. We have not looked at other states. The idea of 7 is that we have a governor that serves for 4 years, and this would give the possibility of it spanning actually 3 administrations. And currently in Virginia code, private debt is 5 years, and so we gave an extra 2 to the state because of that turnover in administration.
All right. Any other questions from the committee? Delegate Cole?
Thank you, Madam Chair, I'm sorry. I would just ask the delegate, is he aware of the time frame of when a debt rolls off of an individual's personal record, like a credit debt?
Madam Chair, as I just stated, personal statute of limitations for private debt is 5 years. And so with this, again, it's giving an extra 2 years because we do have, governor that's only in office for 4 years. Administration changes up. There could be different appointments. I will also add that we have checked with a variety of different agencies, including the Attorney General's office and any other agencies that might be impacted by this, and none of them have any concerns with it and have taken no position.
Thank you, Delegate. Any other questions? Delegate, one question that was raised on this bill would be maybe a potential unintended consequence. I think I hear the problem you're trying to solve for your constituent, but there may be people who owe a debt and are maybe on a payment plan or trying to kind of work through that, and it might incentivize their debt collection to be expedited in a way that could be harmful to those who are trying to pay off their debt if the state knows that there is a timeline on that. Do you have a response to that concern?
Yes, Madam Chair, I think that's a very valid concern that you have, and the way I believe that the way that this was written, it says that there must be reasonable attempts made, and if somebody's on a payment plan, that those attempts have been made and an agreement has been decided upon both parties, and so this would not negate a payment agreement to resolve that debt. This would just say that 7 years, no actions taken. They can't just show up and say, hey, by the way, you owe us $750.
Delegate asked.
Madam Chair.
Delegate Krizek, I'm looking at the
So I'm a little uncomfortable going from a big, from no statute to 7, and I like your thinking about it. It seems eminently fair. But what about situations where people have left the state, they're living in California or someplace like that, and it takes a while sometimes to track people down. And I think we might be losing out on some money that should be coming to the state. And I'm just I'm 7 years is, you've come up with 7 years, but you haven't really, doesn't sound like anybody in the administration or any agency has said this is the timeline we want. So that's my concern, is that it's maybe not completely well thought out, even though to you and me it makes some sense, but I'm not a debt collector, or, so I'm just a little bit worried about unintended consequences.
And Delegate Cole?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just speaking to the bill, and I think it's, in most instances, we heard that it's 5 years for personal debt to be wiped out. We also believe it's about 7 years for when it's wiped off of an individual's credit report. I think this is a good idea. I'm certainly supporting it, so I would ask that my colleagues would support it as well.
Okay, well, let me ask at this time if there's anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor of the bill. And is there anyone opposed? I do think one of the questions that was raised about not so much the intent or the spirit of the bill, but just maybe the implementation. I would be interested at some point to hear from some of the state agencies to determine if, like, why 7? And I get that, a lot of the numbers that end up in our bills are kind of based off of negotiations that may or may not always be based in data and evidence, but I think we should aspire to that when possible. So I don't know if there's anyone in the room today that would be prepared to kind of answer how much time would an agency think is reasonable. And that, if it's not available today, would be a question I'd be interested in getting an answer to at some point. Delegate Cole, do you have another question?
I was just going to state, I know no one's from the administration is here, but as a preacher, we know 7 years is a year of Jubilee, and that's when debts are wiped away. Debts are wiped away.
Well, we were looking for evidence, and now we have it.
Madam
So
Chair,
thank you.
I would concur with the delegate on that one. Again, there is kind of an industry standard for debt being removed from the credit report, 7 years. There's a lot of things in code about 7 years with debt and stuff like that, and that's why the 7 years was selected. I would be open to extending it to 10 years if that would make the other delegate more inclined to support the legislation.
Madam Chair, and I appreciate the delegates' offer, if you will. I'll have to see what the robots think about this. But I just feel, I think we've gone this many years with it the way it is right now. I would not be adverse to next year working with you on this, making sure we come up with the right, and having folks here in the room that can back it up. I just feel a little uncomfortable without that. And so I'm going to, at the correct time, I'm going to make a motion to.
Okay.
Is now the time?
Yeah, now's the time.
I move that we lay this bill gently on the table, and then let's work on this for the future. Thank you.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to lay the bill on the table, and I think if that motion does prevail, Delegate, I would love to see collaboration around this to make sure I think it's a problem you've identified for your constituents, something I think there is an appetite to solve, but I think I'd love to hear some weigh-in from some of the.
So can't continue it to 2025?
I will withdraw the motion.
All right, motion's been withdrawn.
And
would the delegate like to make a substitute motion?
The second's been withdrawn. I'll make a substitute motion that we carry it over to 2025.
That is a voice vote. All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the bill is carried over, and I hope we can continue to work on.
I thank you, Madam Chair, and the generosity of this committee. You all have a blessed evening.
Thank you. You as well. All right. I know Delegate Askew has places to be, so we're going to get you up next so you can get on to your next meeting, too.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, today I have before you HB 1452. Madam Chair, this bill, if you recall, back in 2021 in my previous service, we passed HB 1993, which established and requires state agencies to establish and maintain a comprehensive diversity, equity, inclusion strategic plan yearly in coordination with the governor's director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Madam Chair, this bill And this proposed legislation requires that each state agency submit an annual report to the governor. And what's new in this bill is that they send one to the General Assembly as well, assessing the impact of the diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic plan, including its budget impact by July 1st of each year. Madam Chair, I hope it's the will of the committee to pass this bill.
Thank you, Delegate. Are there any questions from the committee? All right. Is there anyone here in the audience who would like to speak in favor of the bill? Is there anyone here who was opposed to the bill? The committee, Delegate Kriesik.
I would like to move to report the bill.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to report the bill. The clerk will open the roll. The clerk will close. Oh, not yet. Clerk will. I see you pushing the button, Delegate Fowler. Okay. The clerk will close the roll. The bill reports 6-1. Thank you, Delegate Askew.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee.
All right, Delegate Runyon, you are next with 2 bills.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that. Which bill would you like for me to start with?
Let's see, I've got just a numerical order here if you want to start with 1337.
Very good. So 1337 is a technical cleanup. It is an agency bill. And for those of us that have the curse of an accounting background, you'll read through it and you'll find it more than interesting. Those of us that maybe do not it's pretty esoteric. It cleans up and modernizes a number of issues relating to that. I will say that those areas would include it adjusts the Secretary's responsibilities. It addresses electronic transfers as inefficiencies. It allows for criminal history record information dissemination and provides for updated on professional standards and licensing and board composition and duties and enforcement powers. I do have the technical experts here to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you, Delegate. Are there any questions for from the committee for the delegate or his experts? Delegate Kriesik.
Thank you, Delegate. Thank you, Chairwoman. How long does an audit, I wanted to know about right now, currently take, and how much does it cost to carry out?
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, and all the delegates. So we do a full audit. We're a staff of 13 to start with. So we have to hire Brown and Edwards, and we're self-funded, so there's no general funds involved in our agency. So the audit cost, if monetarily, it's around $10,000. But if I look at the internal resources that we have of our small staff, it's much larger. Our audited financial statements have gone from 40 pages to 115 pages. And the Auditor of Public Accounts is here as well, if you'd like to have the support of that.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Is there anything you wanted to add to those remarks? Or was that sufficient, or feel free to add?
Deanne Compton with the Auditor of Public Accounts. We just want to say that we support removing the annual audit requirement. It won't get them out of being audited. We just won't do an audit of their financial statements. So they'll still be part of our audit process each year. The financial statements that they prepare, they're the only agency within the primary government that it has a financial statement requirement that's not a business type activity agency. So this will bring them in line with the other professional entities, DPOR and health professions, but they will still be audited, just a different type of audit.
All right, thank you. And Delegate Kriesik, I think, has a question for you.
So I'm not an accountant, Madam Chair, but I do. I am involved in a lot of audits as general counsel for nonprofits, and obviously it saves money if you don't have to do the full-blown audit, but usually that's for budgets that are pretty low, like under a few $100,000. So I'm concerned that, I think it's always best to have an audit unless it's not necessary. So are you saying that this is really not necessary because it's a small budget, or what's the reasoning behind it?
It's the financial statement audit that's not necessarily. There's really no reason for them to prepare financial statements. It's very cumbersome for them. With the changes in all the audits, accounting standards recently, it's just gotten increasingly more difficult. The accounting standards also don't really provide for an audit of financial statements of an individual department, something smaller than the entire primary government. And so their opinion isn't really an honest opinion over those statements because it doesn't really allow for that. What we would do is bring them, they wouldn't get a financial statement audit, but they would become part of our regular audit process, just like every other state agency. We'd look at them for risk and determine when to audit them and what to audit. They are a very low-risk agency. In the past 10 years, they've had one audit finding, and that's very unusual for a state agency.
Follow-up question?
Yes, Delegate Krizik.
So one thing I heard that you say that gives me a little bit of pause is that the FASB is just too difficult, and that is not always it. That sounds like not a good thing. I mean, if you're saying that, then I'm worried that maybe you really do need an audit.
That's not what I meant. The only reason that an entity needs financial statements is most of our entities, like higher education institutions, is because they issue bonds, and they're a business type entity. The Board of Accountancy is not a business type entity. They don't issue any bonds. No one uses their statements for that purpose. All of their information will still go in the state's financial statements like all other agencies. It goes there now and gets audited through that process. But the complex things that are part of the standards now, it's just not necessary for them to do that. That information is not really necessary for anyone.
Final question. So what kind of budget are we talking about?
Good afternoon. I guess I didn't introduce myself last time. I'm Nancy Glenn, the Executive Director at the Virginia Board of Accountancy. Our budget is about $2.7 million. We haven't spent that in the last few years, but we are putting a new system in currently. But the financial statement audit is actually a redundant effort since we are included in the ACFR for the Commonwealth. And we also, just to make you feel better, we have 6 CPAs and 1 attorney on our board, and we always provide them cash statements each month that we meet. And at the end of the year, they've asked for modified accrual statements for their review. So I actually get audited 6 times, not just once, when it comes to our board. So it's just the amount to have a full GAAP financial statement for a government entity is unusual, and it's also very time consuming for things that we're already doing for the Commonwealth as well. So we're reporting our attachments and all our finances to the Commonwealth for the ACFR, and then we have to do a GAAP statement for us.
All right. Any other questions from the committee? Delegate Lefwich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To whoever can answer this question, so I thought what I heard is that the reports and the financial statements are submitted to where are they submitted? Who are they given to? To an agency, to a different agency of the Commonwealth?
So the audited financial statements that we complete, is that what you're asking about?
Well, so if this bill passes, you won't have to do an audit.
Right.
Right. So, but the law, if it passes, will then require the financial statements, a report on the financial statements to be prepared. Who is that submitted to?
It's submitted to our board.
To your board?
Yes.
Okay, and does that go anywhere else? I thought what I heard you say earlier is that your financial statements are included in another full-blown audit for the Commonwealth.
Yeah, the Commonwealth. So within the Commonwealth, but we're a very low-risk agency, so we're not material to that, but they do audit our statements through the audit process for the Commonwealth. But also, the one thing I think that's important about our financial statements, they don't get issued until last year. It was more than a year after the fiscal year end closed because we're so low risk that we are put at the very end of the audit cycle. So our information is outdated by the time the audit report is issued.
So I just want to make sure, follow-up question. So what I want to understand is, so this bill prevents you from having to go out and hire your own auditor to audit your statements, but through other mechanisms, you are audited.
Right. So our board is requiring modified accrual statements at the end of the fiscal year so they can see, any liabilities that we might have, particularly because it was self-funded. It's very important that we maintain, a good handle on what we need, what liabilities might be outstanding that are in the cash basis statements. So we also submit a biannual report to the General Assembly, and that includes our finances as well.
Right.
Delegate Krizek.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My final kind of comment and question, you can jump in. Again, I'm a lawyer, not an accountant, so it's awful for me to be asking these questions, but it's putting on my kind of board member hat, and I'm glad you have a bunch of CPAs and lawyers on your board. It sounds like a great board. It sounds better than the potato board that's coming up later. So, the idea of an audit is it's independent. It's somebody. It's an outside. That's why we do audits. But what if? Do you have any growth? Potential where you're going to be getting bigger and you're going to get more complicated and complex. There's nothing down the road that we need to worry about.
Yeah, we are self-funded, and our renewal pays for our expenses during the year. But we don't foresee that actually. The CPA pipeline is actually suffering currently. We're trying to get more CPAs in, but so our budget is actually reducing based on our membership. So I don't see in the future that we're going to be any more complex or we're going to be making any more money.
All right. If there are no other questions to committee, I know we had our experts come up. Is there anyone else here in the room that's here to speak for the bill?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Emily Walker with the Virginia Society of CPAs. I will share that we worked very closely with the board on this entire bill. One of the things that our board asked questions about was the removal of this audit requirement as well. And we are satisfied with the responses that we've gotten, especially because they have the support of the Auditor of Public Accounts in doing so. For a little bit of historical context, and this might give you some comfort as well. The reason that this requirement was in the bill or in the Accountancy Act to begin with is because Senator Stosh, at the time this came to fruition, he was the only CPA in the legislature. And as a CPA himself, he thought, well, we should require audited financial statements for the board. But we have since found out that it's a very unique requirement specific to this agency, and it seems duplicative. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone here to speak in opposition to the bill? All right, committee operates by motion.
Madam Chair, I move to report the bill.
Moved and seconded. The clerk will open the roll. The clerk will close the roll. Bill report 7-0. Thank you, Delegate Runyon. You also have HB 1381.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. 1381 is a bill that I think we all appreciate that has been brought forward. I would like to note that we have co-patrons on the committee, Delegates Leftwich and Delegates Krizek. I've tried to be bipartisan there. So House Bill 1381 to rename the Center for Rural Virginia to Senator Frank M. Ruff Jr. Center for Rural Virginia. And not to take a whole lot of your time because I know we're all busy, Senator Ruff was really the original patron and had the concept a long time ago to create this. And he is the reason that we have such a robust Center for Rural Virginia now today. And I think it's very fitting that we name him. I'd also like to recognize a couple of things. We have 64 co-patrons in the House. My good friend, Delegate Askew, said if I give him the sheet, he'll get the other 35. But it would include Speaker Scott, Delegates Bulova, Bloxham, Phil Scott, and Fowler are also.
Madam Chair, I move to report the bill.
So, thank you. What's that?
I move to report.
Thank you.
All right, it's been moved and seconded, and it sounds like a co-patron request will be coming around on the floor shortly. So the clerk will open the roll. The clerk will close the roll. And the bill report 7-0. Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, Delegate Bloxham, HB 1399.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me find out. I was actually reading my P&E. This bill simply reduces the potato board from 7 to 5. It's a self-assessing board that spends money that they actually charge themselves on the potatoes that they sell. The problem is the farms are getting bigger and my farmers are getting fewer, and they cannot get a quorum to conduct business. So they asked if we could reduce it from 7 to 5.
Delegate Krizik, question.
Just 2 questions, Madam Chair.
Delegate has the floor.
One is, have you brought any French fries to show us today that we can?
Bad season.
It's out of season?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Wow.
Now, the potato chips you ate today were from Eastern Shore Potatoes.
All right, so he did.
So in a roundabout way, I did, even though the cattlemen brought them.
And you had a second question,
My second
Delegate
question, do you
Krizik.
have any CPAs on the board?
Absolutely not, unless they grow potatoes. You have to be a producer of potatoes to be on the board.
Delegate McClure.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you, and I thank the patron for bringing this forward. So as I read the bill and as I understand it, and also hearing from the Farm Bureau folks, so I guess it's my understanding that there are about 12 potato producers in the Commonwealth, and with their limited capacity, you just want to meet quorum?
Yes, basically, yes. And some of the potato farmers at home will not come to a meeting or won't go to a meeting. So we're trying to meet a quorum.
Well, I support this bill, so thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? Delegate Lefwich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm really surprised that Delegate Krizik didn't steal this. This issue is a real hot potato. And I want to know if you could combine this with the pickle board for Delegate
Absolutely
Krizik.
not. No.
Madam Chair, I have a motion.
So I'd like to ask the delegate one more question before we entertain a motion. And, you know, we're looking at reducing the size of the board. But I know there are a lot of people, namely on this committee, that like potatoes. And have there been any consideration of adding membership to the board beyond the farmers and maybe others who might have an interest in potatoes?
The only reason why it's written the way that it is that it is a self-assessing tax. So they want to spend it themselves for advertising. Other than that, they want you to eat potatoes.
Okay, well, I do think that there are a lot of people in this committee and across Virginia who do enjoy eating
Maybe
potatoes.
honorary membership would be the
If there are
the amendment that we
opportunities
need to
for
do.
an honorary membership, I would be very interested in pursuing that for those who I represent and work with. Committee operates by motion.
I move to report.
Second. It's moved and seconded. The clerk will open the roll. Clerk will close the roll. The bill report 7-0. Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And Delegate Hodges, 1430.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. That's a tough one to follow.
It sure is, but you are last, so
Okay.
you know that's always a special place for a committee.
Well, thank you. I'll try to be brief. Thank you, Madam Chair. House Bill 1430. King and Queen County has passed a resolution and come to me requesting this legislation. And like King and Queen, like many other counties across the state, they've recognized the need to be more streamlined and have a more efficient approach to governing its public services. In line with this vision, the county wishes to operate its public library as a department of the county rather than being governed by a separate administrative board. While the county remains committed to seeking input from its citizens through an advisory board, it does not believe it's in the best interest of its residents to require the governance by an administrative board. It's a challenge to get members to serve on an administrative board, especially in small rural communities. By integrating the library's operations with the county government, they eliminate unnecessary bureaucratic layers, and streamlining will lead to more efficient decision-making processes and enhanced service delivery to our constituents. This basically just adds King and Queen County to the list of other rural counties that have chosen this option.
Thank you, Delegate. Are there questions from the committee?
Madam Chair,
Delegate Cole.
I would ask the delegate, does King and Queen County currently have a library board?
Well, they have a board. It's part of the Pamunkey Regional Library Board, which is Goochland, King and Queen, King William, and King and Queen. Each have a certain number of members. It will have to be a unanimous decision by the regional board for King and Queen to withdraw from this.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate. Are there any other questions from the committee? All right. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor of the bill? Anyone to speak in opposition to the bill? All right. The committee operates by motion. Delegate Fowler? It's been moved and seconded. The clerk will open the roll. All right, the clerk will close the roll and the bill reports 7-0. Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you. Y'all have a great day.
You too. All right. If I am not mistaken, that completes the business of this subcommittee. So do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
It's been seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.